Belichick is famous because he was the coach and the play caller on defense and the general manager. He was like the dictator of New England, and he made it work. Kyle really wants to be the Bill Belichick of the 49ers. He puts every single job on his plate. Is that a mistake? Should he not aspire to be the next Belichick?
I think we can all aspire to be these things, right? But Bill Belichick, how long was he coaching before he got all of that power, right? Before he got, hey, I have final say on the 53. I get to call the defense. I get to fire whoever I want. I get to trade whoever I want. This wasn't like his first rodeo when he got all of this power, right?
It's true.
I don't know if Jed York felt in order to land a good head coach, I got to do this. I got to concede this to him. I would assume that that's probably how he felt just on the heels of the last few coaches that the 49ers had to deal with. So I got to give him credit for at least like making that work. But it's very obvious to me. Just look at some of these first round misses. Just look at some of these extensions and how they've been handled. If the 49ers are going to make a move, and the reason this doesn't work for 49ers versus the Patriots is two things, right? Obviously, you have Tom Brady. The 49ers don't have Tom Brady. The other thing is, though, Belichick, look at all the people that he traded at the peak of their powers. You remember Chandler Jones was killing it. Richard Seymour was killing it. A couple cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good at keeping players at an arm's distance.
Yep.
And making sure that they just kind of didn't feel too close to him, right? Because if you're too close to somebody, if me and you are homies, we're best friends, it's hard to fire you.
Yep.
But if you're an acquaintance, it's easy to let you go, or easier to let you go, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the main difference between maybe the Patriot way and how Bill was and how Kyle is. Even though the setups are the same, Bill didn't let personal feelings get in the way of business. And if he looked at a salary cap and he said, hey, I love this player, he's great, but he takes too much of the salary cap, I'm trading him a year early, which the 49ers could have easily done with Brandon Ayuk, I think, prior to the draft, and probably got a first-round pick for him. Belichick would have done that. I know he would have done that, right? Because that's what the track record was. So I think, like, those are the two differences. And, we talk about maybe, like, what should the 49ers do? I think that the easiest thing is maybe you want to give Kyle one more year, but you got to change this power dynamic, this power structure that's clearly not working.
It's funny, like when Harbaugh was the coach, he didn't have nearly the amount of power that Kyle's had since day one. He wanted it, and I'm not sure it necessarily would have been good for him. I think maybe the fact that tension between him and Trent Baalke brought out the best in him. I don't know. But that's interesting. Like when you talk about the culture differences between Kyle and Belichick, Kyle's notorious for being friends with the best players on the team, vacationing with the best players on the team. Bill would never do that. And then it does seem like he gives preferential treatment to the best players. Like when the long snapper and the wide receiver get into it, Kyle takes the wide receiver's side. Whereas Bill was famous for like verbally undressing Tom Brady in front of the entire team to sort of make a point. Like, he's not above anyone on this team. And this is how I talk to everyone. Everyone's equal.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the guys that got extensions, right? Is it the Cabo clique? Did they all get extensions?
Boy. Yeah, absolutely. Trent, Debo got renegotiated. Christian. Yeah. Kyle's preferred crew.
People are people, right? We like the people we like, and we want to keep these people around. But I think, like, at the end of the day, we're seeing kind of the results of that. We're seeing what a top-heavy team looks like. We're seeing what a team that misses on high draft picks early looks like. And the 49ers, if they're wise, I think the easiest thing that they can do is just shake up this power structure, bring in an actual GM. Love John Lynch. He's probably my favorite person in the organization, right? I mean, he seems like a guy that I don't know him personally, but he's easy to like. They need a GM who's a GM, who can walk into the room, who has final say, who says, these are the guys we're going to war with. And whether you like it or not, this is it. And I'm also evaluating you and your performance, right?
Yeah, somewhat like the Chiefs have a strong general manager. The Chargers have a strong general manager. The Ravens have a strong general manager. Like all these highly paid Like Andy Reid's making $20 million a year, but he has to answer to a general manager who has final say. So I think absolutely I would agree if they're going to keep Kyle Shanahan, they need to bring in a general manager who can have a lot of power. And I do think it's kind of interesting that, they had Adam Peters for a long time. And you always wondered, like, well, what does he do? Like, which players is he picking and what kind of an impact does he have on the organization overall? He leaves. The Niners have their worst season in a while with just like organizational malfunction, dysfunction and drama. And all of a sudden, Washington is like doing everything right. Like, yeah, I think maybe that speaks to a void in the 49ers front office.
And we talk about this too, right? The draft class this year was good, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was still all his work.
Correct.
Peters, that stuff happened a year ago, right? They're already starting to scout players, right? So we'll see moving forward what that looks like. But there's just been way too many early misses in the first and second round. And I think like the jury's still on Pearsall. I think he has some elite abilities. There's just a lot of questionable picks.
Right? Yeah, and it's like, why? Because you mentioned it, with Peters and a true general manager, their scouting process starts when some of these players are like freshmen and sophomores. I'm sure when you were at San Jose, there were certain people looking at you, getting to know your teachers and your family pretty young. Kyle Shanahan turns on the tape in February and watches for a day. Says, "Oh, I like his tape." Okay, but you don't know that guy at all, man. That's how you drafted Dante Pettis in round 2. You didn't know him at all.
You know what I always say when it comes to drafting a player, right? You got to know how good he wants to actually be. It's not about, okay, you're good in college, that's cool, but we've all seen a lot of people flame out, right? We've all seen a lot of people be good up to a point. Once you get into the NFL, it's like, how hungry are you? How important is the game to you?
Look at George Kittle. Look at Fred Warner. There's no question for them.
And these are all things that you can't get watching the tape. You got to sit, as Harbaugh says, knee to knee with somebody, right? Right. You got to really look them in the eye and figure out what kind of person is this. It's hard to do that when you're scheming out plays, being the offensive coordinator, and trying to do everything.
And Harbaugh like knows what it looks like, what it takes, because he had it. He was in the NFL. He didn't coast on ability. He wasn't the most gifted quarterback of all time. He was a football junkie who worked really hard, and that is the main reason he had any success at all in the NFL. So I think a guy like that can probably, some of the time, recognize that trait, drive in other people. And Kyle, maybe he can too. I mean, like, to his credit, he did draft, or he was involved in the drafting of George Kittle and players like that. But too often he takes a guy early in the draft and is completely flabbergasted when he doesn't think he's as great as Kyle thought he was.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those.
He compared Ricky Pearsall to himself. That was a red flag.
Yeah, I don't know, man. No comment on that one.